Taiwan, the island that China considers a renegade, reacted to Hong Kong's handover anniversary, saying freedom in the city has vanished. It also accused China of failing to live up to its promises of 50 years without change. Taiwan has repeatedly rebuffed any talk of being united with the mainland under the one country, two system model.
我们也更可以知道，我们一定要坚守台湾的主权、自由、民主。中国的所谓“一国两制”根本不堪检验。
Meantime, Britain says it will do all it can to hold Beijing to its commitments made when Hong Kong was handed over to China 25 years ago.
We simply cannot avoid the fact that for some time now, Beijing has been failing to comply with its obligations. It's a state of affairs that threatens both the rights and freedoms of Hong Kongers and the continued progress and prosperity of their home.
Olivia Seong joins us live from Beijing. Olivia, we've heard just there former colonial master Britain criticizing China over its handling of Hong Kong. So has the US. How has Beijing reacted to all these comments?
Well, China has issued a clear warning that any external interference in Hong Kong, which it considers its internal affairs, it says will not succeed. And we heard there from the UK Prime Minister, but we also saw a statement from the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, saying that the introduction of the national security law in 2020 has led to an erosion of autonomy in Hong Kong, as we've seen journalists and activists being arrested, independent media outlets being told to shut, as well as opposition voices effectively silenced. Now, this is not the first time that China is clashing with the West over Hong Kong. Beijing views this as part of a wider concerted effort to fan anti-China sentiment to contain its rise. And we see the Chinese Foreign Ministry really hitting back, saying that the US and UK are not qualified to comment on a prosperous, stable and united Hong Kong, accusing them of talking about democracy and human rights while turning a blind eye to its own issues. And specifically for the UK, it said that Britain had no sovereignty, governance or supervision rights over Hong Kong after the handover. And we have to remember that this comes after 2019, those anti-government protests that had begun because of a proposed law that would have allowed extradition from Hong Kong to the mainland. The protests had angered those who said that this was an example of Beijing encroaching on the city's freedoms, but then there were later greater calls for democracy. Beijing seeing this as a direct challenge to its authority, and also saying that this unrest was incited by foreign forces. And so we see that President Xi in his speech today making it very clear, leaving no doubt in who he says is in charge, saying that Beijing had comprehensive jurisdiction over Hong Kong and that Hong Kong should respect the Chinese leadership under the Communist Party.
Also can't help but notice, President Xi's trip to Hong Kong comes at a politically sensitive time. Tell us the significance of this visit.
Well, there are a few reasons why this trip is significant, not just because it's symbolic, the 25th anniversary halfway through this one country, two systems framework that's to last for 50 years, but also because this is the first trip that President Xi is making outside of the mainland since the pandemic began over 2 years ago. But the even bigger picture is because this is significant given the upcoming party congress that only takes place twice a decade. And we know that President Xi is going after an unprecedented third term in power. And so he is really keen to cement his leadership and to highlight some of the achievements that he's made. If we were to compare this visit to his 2017 trip during the 20th handover anniversary, we saw that in his speech, President Xi saying that there are red lines and there was a need for Hong Kong to improve its systems to uphold national sovereignty following unrest that we had seen in 2014 and 2016. But analysts tell me that this time round, President Xi seems to be saying that many of these issues have been resolved with sweeping changes being made with that controversial national security law, also changes to Hong Kong's electoral system, which allows only patriots to govern Hong Kong. State media portraying President Xi as being at the helm of these changes, crediting him for the stability that's now being restored in Hong Kong. Also, President Xi keen to highlight his vision for Hong Kong, saying that there are more opportunities than challenges, but this is based on the premise that one country, two systems is adhered to based on how Beijing interprets it.